Hello, welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Ragtime, the revival at Lincoln Center Theater. Now, before I jump into this review, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm really trying to get my subscriptions up so that I can make this my new full-time job. All right, but we're a long ways off from that. All right, so Ragtime. Going into this, I am very familiar with this show. I first saw it, I didn't see it on Broadway when it premiered in 1998. I wasn't living in New York, but I saw the tour of that production in Washington, D.C. when I was visiting there, and I was blown away. Now, the tour was a little bit scaled down, a little smaller cast, smaller sets, but it was the same Graciela Danielle's choreography, and this was the director of the production I saw back then. And I loved it. I mean, I was just blown away by that opening number and the sound from this huge cast just singing at me. So cool. And so I've always really loved the show because of that experience seeing it. I also have many times had been called in to audition for Tateh, and so I'm familiar with his scenes and the songs just because I had to do them. So very familiar with this show and very excited that they were bringing it back because they did a simpler, more scaled down production of it in 2009. This production from the Kennedy Center was very successful, so they transferred it to Broadway, but it didn't do that well on Broadway. It was critically praised, but it only lasted, I believe, for 65 performances. And there's also been more intimate revivals like the 2023 Signature Theater production, which also got a lot of critical praise. But this show, when it was originally done in 1998, was a huge spectacle, and so that we know that's what Lincoln Center does with their huge theater space. And so it does not disappoint, and that's what I was looking forward to seeing this production being done big and huge like it was done originally, like it was intended. So what is Ragtime about? Well, it follows the stories of three main characters. We've got Mother, who is a white woman living in New Rochelle with her husband, her grandfather, her kid, and her younger brother. And then we've got Coalhouse Walker Jr., who lives in Harlem, and he's a black man who plays piano, and he falls in love with a woman named Sarah, poor washerwoman. And then we've got Tateh, who is a Jewish immigrant who has just arrived in America and is struggling to make his life, probably on like the Lower East Side is probably where he's at. All right, and he's got a daughter and he's chasing the American dream. And then alongside these fictional characters, we've got a lot of characters who were actual people who lived in that time period. We've got historical figures like Emma Goldman, Booker T. Washington, Evelyn Nesbit, J.P. Morgan, Henry Ford, Harry Houdini, and they kind of drift in and out of the play, giving commentary and sometimes functioning to actually affect the narrative, but not usually. All right, and so let's get into it. You know, Ragtime is a very interesting show because it's epic in scope. It's a huge cast. There's so many characters. There's so much music. It is a big, bombastic kind of show. Some of the best things about this show is the score. Ahrens and Flaherty know how to write a power ballad. They just know how to grab your heart and grab you by the throat and by the heart and just write these soaring ballads like Wheels of a Dream, Back to Before, Make Them Hear You, The Night That Goldman Spoke at Union Square, Your Daddy's Son, New Music, Till We Reach That Day, Our Children, Sarah Brown Eyes, He Wanted to Say. I mean, there's so many big power ballad kinds of songs. And they're not always, ballad, they're not always slow. A lot of them have the really nice engine underneath them, and that's what makes them so effective. So if you want to hear big singing, I mean, go to Ragtime. It is amazing voices and amazing singing. The audience actually the show stopped twice, after Wheels of a Dream and I believe after Make Them Hear You, both songs that Coalhouse Walker is singing, and stopped the show. People stood up to applaud. I mean, that's the kind of songs that Ahrens and Flaherty write. This show feels, it's a musical, but it's kind of an opera. And I feel like when it leans into that operatic grandeur is really when it takes off. I mean, one of my favorite moments in any musical is in Ragtime. It's the new music song where Colehouse is coming every Sunday for weeks, playing, trying to get Sarah to forgive him and come down. He's courting her, basically. And he's playing the piano, and the family are singing this new music song about just how they've never seen someone so in love, and it's just touching their hearts. And he sings this, Sarah, come down to me, and she hears the music, and she comes down the stairs, and they sing together, and it's just, I think it's such a brilliant scene. To me, that's the highlight of the show in the first act, when Sarah and Colehouse come together, because that's really the main love story in the show. We do have a love story between Mother and Tateh, but that is really, it's not really a love story. It's an epilogue. We find out at the end, they're like, yeah, they got together. So some of the negative things about this show, and it's not so much this production, I think it's just the problem of adapting this huge novel and trying to stay true to the novel, but then create something that works for the theater. And what I feel is that this show very easily can feel heavy-handed. And I didn't feel it so much when I first saw the original production, but gosh, I really felt it this time. And I don't know if it's because I'm at a different place in my life, or if it's because the direction, or because what's going on politically. I mean, this show certainly is timely, talking about immigrants not being welcome to America, and black people being killed and treated poorly and having crimes committed against them, and they don't have a recourse to right those, about white people trying to navigate their privilege within all this. I mean, this is all very timely, and I think it will be for a long time to come, sadly. But I noticed this time watching it, it just felt so didactic and so heavy-handed to me. You know, interestingly, I took a friend of mine with me to go see this, and because he's never seen Ragtime. And so I was curious to see what he thought of it. And I love the show. Let me just get that. I love Ragtime. The music makes it worthwhile for me. He did not enjoy the show. He found it way too heavy-handed. He just felt like it was preaching at him. He also was very confused by the narratives. And I think I understand the narrative just because I've lived with the show so long and I've read the script and things like that. But I do see this show is trying to do so much in such a small amount of time that the book scenes are very short, and it can feel very emotionally untruthful. And it can just be confusing because we jump from huge emotions, and we jump from one beat to the next beat. And one of those places that I've always felt, even in the original production, is when Mother is digging in the dirt and she finds this abandoned baby. It's so hard to stage because she's just got a little plot of dirt that she's working in, and she's doing dialogue while she's digging. And then she's like, oh, a baby. And it's just so strange. I mean, at least this set piece was a little bigger. When I saw the tour, it was literally like a window flower box, and it was like this big. And she was like, oh, a baby. You're like, how could you not see that? So anyhow, but this scene, she finds the baby, and then immediately she's like, go get the housekeeper, whoever, I need her help. And the set rotates, and then she's in the house, but she starts singing, and she starts saying, what kind of woman would leave a child? And it just feels untruthful, because if you just found a baby, you wouldn't be thinking about these larger ideas of what kind of woman would do that. You'd be like, save the baby, get hot water. Is the baby breathing? Is the baby warm enough? Let's clean the baby off. Let's make sure they're not sick, and let's call the doctor. And then maybe a day later, you would be like, oh, I wonder what kind of woman would do this? So this show, a lot of it, the emotional beats come so fast that you have to just kind of think of it as an opera and not really think of it as being real. Because then she sings the song, What Kind of Mother? And then, of course, the mother is brought in by the police. We don't know why the police brought her there, why that. And then they're like, we're gonna throw her into a ward for wayward women. And then Mother is like, no, I'll take care of her. And the cops were like, okay. And I'm like, wait, did she commit a crime or not? Because they're like, they were gonna prosecute her or whatever for abandoning her child. But then they're like, oh, white woman says it's okay. So there's just this swirl of things that has to happen, and I get why it has to happen, but it just doesn't, you have to let go. And this is what I was saying to my friend, you kind of just have to let go. And I hate that excuse, it's a musical, but I look at it and I go, it's an opera. Because for me, operas, I feel like operas are about big emotions, it's about big singing, it's about the songs, it's not so much about a believable narrative, because usually they're singing in Italian, and it's people are, full-bodied people playing people who are dying of starvation, and you're like, she looks well-fed. But anyhow, I'm going to get canceled for that, am I? Okay, it goes for the guys as well. Not in this show. Musicals tend to be much more realistic with casting and trying to cast people that do actually fit what's happening to the character. All right, I got off. I think one of the difficulties of adapting this from Dr. O's novel is that in the novel, he speaks in this third person, and Terrence McNally has emulated that in the show. So we've got characters talking about themselves in the third person. Father felt this, mother felt this. And that really distances us as an audience from thinking of them as real people. And they are archetypes, but sometimes, not only do they feel like archetypes, sometimes they can start to feel like stereotypes. And I just wish that they felt more like fully developed three-dimensional people who I could really relate with on a person-to-person level, as opposed to looking at them as a type of person. But again, that's what the novel does, and the musical does it as well. It's also interesting to notice, and I think this is the right choice, they make Mother the main character in the show. And I think that's important, even though the majority of the narrative really focuses around Coalhouse and Sarah. If Coalhouse was the lead character, this would be a tragedy, because he is a typically tragic character whose pride ends up leading to his downfall. Not to say that he didn't have a right to be proud and that he wasn't operating in a world that the cards were stacked against him, and him wanting justice isn't a bad thing, but a lot of the choices he makes, including Sarah's death, are a result of his pride. And saying, that's a moment too in the show where I just lose all sympathy for Coalhouse, where he says, until my car is returned to me, I don't know how he talks, until my car is returned to me, I will not marry. And I'm like, why are you punishing Sarah because someone put your car in the lake? She told you. She was like, we should turn around and go back. And he was like, no, we're going to go this way. So, yeah. And, Tateh's story is uplifting, but we don't see it. In the first act, he's just struggling. He's just, all of his songs is like, he wants to be American, but then he just keeps getting beaten down. And it's just, there's a night and day switch in Act 2, and all of a sudden he has become a very wealthy man. So I find his isn't this. His is, and Coalhouse is, and Mother is slowly going up. So it makes sense to follow Mother as our lead character. That way we don't end up having a tragedy. But again, that's what makes this feel operatic. At the heart of this show, the narrative is a tragedy. It's not a musical comedy. If anything, this show is really more of a musical, it's a tragedy with a bit of hope at the end, because Tateh and Mother get together and we get to see this melting pot of a family where we have a Christian and a Jew and an immigrant and a Caucasian woman, and wealthy and poor but now wealthy, and then they've got a little black child. So they're just the American dream in this little family. It's, it's cute, it's heavy-handed, of course, but it is, it's aspirational. So any other thoughts? So I understood the confusion. And so was I bored? Was I confused? As I said, I love this show, but for the most part, I'm not bored, with the exception of, I find that Ahrens and Flaherty write these big emotional power ballads really well. But you can't have a show of nothing but ballads. There's already too many in this show. So they break it up with these uptune songs that are written maybe a ragtime, more Jewish kind of feel, and they're usually uptune numbers, like a vaudeville number. So basically the third song in the show is Crime of the Century, and we go to a vaudeville theater And I was always confused by this scene. I'm glad that it says vaudeville theater here, because she's on a swing, but then there's like a bunch of men who are playing the jury, and there's a judge. And so, okay, it's a vaudeville number about, this is very Chicago. It's a vaudeville number about her husband shooting her lover. But it's the second scene, it's the third song, and Evelyn Nesbit sings this full song. And it's confusing to me, because I think that Evelyn Nesbit is going to be a main character in this show, and she's not. The historical characters are not the main characters in this show. So every time they have a big moment on stage, I find it a little confusing. And this happens right at the beginning. So another place that I also get a little bored, or is the second act to me. The first act moves pretty well. We're following Coalhouse and Sarah's courtship, and we're also singing Tateh is really just struggling through the first act, so he doesn't really have an upward arc. It's really Coalhouse and Sarah, and how Mother is responding, and then when Father comes home, how they're all responding to this love story. It's really about that. And the first act to me works pretty well, but then we get to the second act. Sarah has died, Coalhouse's anger, spoiler alert. Coalhouse sings an angry song. Then we go to Mother, it says to Father, you don't spend enough time with your child. Okay. And so he goes, I'm going to take him to a baseball game. And then we get like an up-tempo baseball number that I think is supposed to be a comedic number after in the vein of like Officer Krupke, but it's just not that funny. It's a lot of spitting and cursing, which is funny for half a second, but then I'm like, okay, can we move on? Then we do this number about Atlantic City. I'm like, okay, Atlantic City. And then we realize, then Tateh shows up, and he's like, I'm a success now. We're like, oh, great, because you were just struggling throughout the first act. We're glad you finally made it. And then we have a moment between mothers. They sing another ballad. And then finally, 25 minutes later, we get back to the Coalhouse narrative, which is, to me, the main narrative of the show. It's the one that has the most momentum to it. So for me, the second act I get a little bored, a little confused with that whole segment. I'm like, cut the baseball song. Just go right to Atlantic City. Atlantic City is an uptune number. But I understand the reason why songs like Crime of the Century is in there. The Getting Ready Rag, which is just him getting dressed up. There are so many ballads. I'm just looking at this. The Courtship. You know, all of the uptune songs in this show, I feel, are kind of like throwaway songs. But they're there because we can't have all ballads. And I wish these uptune songs had enough wit and humor to them that they were as strong as these amazing ballads. Another thing I just want to comment, having had to sing the songs for Tateh, he gets the worst songs. He gets the most boring songs. I always was like, Mother and Coalhouse and Sarah, they get the best songs. Poor Tateh. But, you know, Brandon Uranowitz does a great job. Joshua Henry as Coalhouse, amazing in this. When he jumps into his upper register, which happens 2 or 3 times in the show, you feel it in your chest. He's an amazing singer. Casey Levy as Mother is great. She's actually very grounded, very believable in that role. And Brandon Uranowitz is great too. I mean, no complaints for any of these actors from me. They're all doing the job. They're singing the notes, they're acting the roles, they're all doing it. I do have one exception. Okay, this is the director's fault though, and I did feel this is the heavy-handedness. I feel like a lot of the direction in this revival is wanting to indicate things to the audience like we're idiots. It happens actually with all the characters, but at least the older actors are able to massage it a little bit so that it's not so obvious. But for example, the scene where Mother and her son are waiting for the train and they run into... Mother and her son are at a train station and Tateh shows up with his daughter and she's tied. He's got a rope tying her to him because he's so afraid of losing her. And the little boy starts to stare and Mother says it's not polite to stare. This little boy has been directed to stare like this. And he does it for like 5 minutes. And it's just stuff like that. I'm like, I blame the director because it's a child. The child isn't making that choice, the director. Just tell him to look at the girl. Staring is just this. It's just looking at someone too long. It's staring. And we're not idiots. I don't understand that kind of direction. And I felt a lot of the direction. Oh, also a thing about the director, who, what am I, burning bridges here? Who's the director? They did a good job overall. Let me say, directed by Lear deBessonet is the director. And I felt like the opening number, Ragtime, which was so brilliantly staged by Graciela Daniele, here it didn't quite measure up. And also they start the play with this young black boy comes on. And as an audience, as someone who's seen the play before, I know exactly who that is. For anyone who's not seen the play, my friend who came with me, no clue who that is. And there's a moment where Mother, Tateh, and Coalhouse have a moment where they all come together and stare each other down. We don't know they're the three main characters yet, because we're introducing them in this song. And so it feels a little heavy-handed. It feels a little bit like you as the director, you know what's going to happen. But us as an audience, we don't know why these three people are the most important people on the stage right now. So I felt it was doing a little too much. Also, the whole chorus for the very beginning of the show starts with a short little monologue for the little boy, which he's delivering to the little black boy now. And then they use the hydraulics at Lincoln Center to all of the women and men in white, the New Rochelle people, rise out of the stage singing. And it's very effective, so effective that the audience felt the need to applaud, thereby making it impossible to hear the first lyrics of the first song of the show. And I love the opening song, and I love the opening line, but I couldn't hear it. So that annoyed me. I was like, don't do something that's going to make people applaud and not let me hear the lyrics. Now, I thought the song Journey On, which is the song sung by Father, who's leaving America to go off on this expedition, and Tateh, who's coming to America. And they put them on these two rolling staircases, and they pushed them around as they sang the song Journey On, and they were connecting with each other. I thought this was beautiful direction. It also raised them up. I was sitting in the loge, so I was like, great, the actors are now at my level. Mother's down on the floor singing. I thought that scene was beautifully done. But again, talking about heavy-handedness and how I feel often in this show, it's so didactic. For example, Tateh sees this man on the ship and he's waving to them, which is Father, and he says, oh, what a fool. He's a fool going on a fool's errand. And I go, that's the writer speaking. Tateh just sees some dude on a ship. And yes, he's going away from America, but he doesn't know he's going on an expedition to Antarctica. He doesn't know who this man is. I get the point is that Tateh is showing that Tateh is loving coming to the U.S., but I just find his dialogue, I go, that is not Tateh's dialogue. That is the book writer or the lyricist telling us as an audience what we should take out of this moment. And I feel like this show does that a lot. It's very heavy-handed, telling us what we need to be getting out of this show, and it really isn't necessary. And I feel like a director really needs to fight against that, because that's one thing I've never liked about the show, is just how on the nose it is. There isn't a lot of subtext. When they sing exactly what they're feeling in that moment. Wheels of a Dream, they're singing their aspirations. There's not really subtext to it. Probably the only song that maybe has a little subtext, but in a way the lyrics, the way it doesn't really, it's Our Children, where it's in Atlantic City, Act 2, Mother and Tateh are singing about their children. And look how they running towards the future from the past. Towards the future, we're talking about the little boy. From the past, we're talking about the little immigrant girl who's had a very hard life thus far. But the subtext there should be that these two parents are actually falling in love. But the song really seems to be just about the children. So am I being hypocritical? I don't think so. I think there's a way to write a song, as we see with a lot of musical theater, where there's some really rich subtext that we can then play and get dramatic action. Otherwise, what happens in that whole section I've talked about just a minute ago, about the baseball game to Atlantic City to Our Children, when we want to get back to the real narrative, you're giving us this you're catching us up in Tateh's life, but there's no real drama there. We're just saying Atlantic City's nice. Baseball games are rough and tumble and people curse and spit. And aren't children wonderful? We're connecting. We need drama. So we do get the drama, finally, when we get back to Coal House. And this is where my theater companion had to ask me a little bit confusing about what is Coal House doing. He's setting things on fire. He's taking over buildings. It is a little confusing. I always just say he's being a revolutionary. We don't really have to understand the details of it. He takes over a building, demands that he gets his car back. To what end? Anyhow, I hope I'm not spoiling anything for anybody. I just feel like this show's been around so long, but my friend hadn't seen it, so there you go. Let's talk about historical figures just for 1 second. This, I think, is probably got to be the biggest challenge for the creative team adapting this show. And look, I'm saying things I don't like about this show, but I'm letting you know I love it. But there are things that it's not perfect. And I'm criticizing things and I don't always have the solution. Because one of the biggest problems I find with the show is these historical figures that keep coming in and out. Let me know below in the comments if you love that. I want to spend my time with Mother, Tateh. Well, I really want to only spend my time with Mother and Coal House and Sarah. Those are the people I'm interested in. Tateh, I'm really not interested. I wish his story intertwined more into Coal House's and Sarah's story because that's the main narrative, but he never meets them. And he's only tangentially related to Mother because he happens to pass them on a train station and the little boy staring at his daughter. That's really the only connection they have. Oh, and Tateh seeing the husband. All of Tateh's connections to the other characters are just ships in the night passing, until we find out in the epilogue that when he met Mother at Atlantic City that they fell in love. I didn't see that. I just saw that they both were admiring how happy their children were and how fast they could run. So right there, but on paper, those three characters are really the story. All of these historical figures, Evelyn Nesbit's song, even Emma Goldman, Booker T. Washington, some of them, Emma Goldman and Booker T. have a little bit to do with the narrative, but I don't think they need to be there to have to do with the narrative. And so Harry Houdini especially, I'm like, I don't care. Warn the Duke. The little boy keeps saying, warn the Duke throughout the show. And then at the very end, in the epilogue, Harry Houdini says, oh yeah, I played for Duke Ferdinand and I knew what the kid meant. Cut that. Warn the Duke. Talk about a red herring or just misleading us. Is this the Sixth Sense? Does the boy see murders before they happen? Is this Minority Report? I don't like the little boy having psychic abilities. It's so weird to me. And it's just confusing. And I'm just like, that would be so easy to cut. Terrence, I know you passed away, but can we cut that? All right. So I always struggle with the inclusion of the historical figures as characters because I just feel like they take up precious stage time. We're already dealing with three stories that could probably be their own musicals. Like you could probably write a Fiddler on the Roof type show just about Tateh. Oh, there is. It's called Ragtime. Rags is about immigrants coming to the U.S. You could have a show just about that. You could have a show just about Coal House and Sarah. And you could have a show just about Mother and her coming into her own and discovering who she is as a woman who needs to get the right to vote. All right. So I mean, I don't know. My inclination is just cut the freaking historical figures, but they're so entrenched in the source material that it probably wasn't even an option. They were like, well, in the source material, he's got historical figures, so they have to be in the play. So my main problem with Ragtime is it's just too many characters, too many storylines, too much singing, too many ballads, too much. It's too much for 3 hours. And this show is 3 hours because they had to cut it off there. This show was probably 4 hours when they wrote it because there's so much material. So let's see. Let's wrap this up. Ragtime is a masterpiece, but it's also a mess. And I'm here for it because the singing and the songs to me are so emotional and so beautiful that I'm willing to go and watch this musical and be okay with being a little confused and a little bored I'm not that bored. I just get some of the baseball game. I'm bored with the baseball game. The rest of Atlantic City a little bit, but the rest of it I think I'd be fine if we just killed the baseball game. Kill the Duke. Well, don't kill the Duke. Cut the Duke. Cut the baseball game. Okay. But I think this show has really established itself as a classical piece of American theater. It is in the pantheon, it is in the catalog that people go to regularly in regional theaters. This show is produced because it does land emotionally and it is an amazing score. Another shout out to Stephen Flaherty. What he does so well in this score is the show feels contemporary, but it also feels of a time. And that is hard to do. And Stephen Flaherty is the master of this. It feels both true to the time period, but yet it is sung in a way that as a contemporary audience, it feels very now. And that is amazing. So the Tony won for Best Score was well deserved for this show. So why should you go see Ragtime? Go see it for these things I just said. Go see it for the amazing singing. Go for the operatic grandeur of it. Go for the big emotional swings that it has. Go in there and just get lost in it, and don't worry too much about it not feeling very truthful or real at times, and it being very much heavy-handed and smashed in. So, you know, if I think anyone who's watching this video is probably familiar with the show, or most of you are. And if you love Ragtime, this is definitely an enjoyable production of it. I love Ragtime. I love this production of it. Yes, I had my quibbles. You've heard them. Okay, and so seats. Lincoln Center, Vivian Beaumont is such a great house. It's a thrust stage. It's a thrust, not in the round, but it's a thrust stage, and so it kind of, the audience comes around it a bit. The loge is only 5 rows, and you're over the orchestra, so you're just as close as the people in the back of the orchestra. I sat in the loge all the way to the side, didn't miss anything. Occasionally, because they're using the very back of the stage, which was never really meant to be used as a stage, you're using it for entrances. Occasionally, you'll miss the beginning of an entrance. But that's okay. They're always coming down stage. The director, I feel for this, was aware of the sight lines with this space, and so I think everything is really good. The only time maybe they weren't aware of the sight lines, and I just heard this from a patron, that the piano, which is on, it has a turntable, sometimes ends in a place where the people on the first few rows to the house left of center in that section, which I believe is probably the 200s, those first few rows might have moments where the piano, the upright piano, is blocking their view. So that might be, if you're someone who's buying an orchestra ticket, maybe get it on the house right side just to avoid that piano. That's my word to the wise. If anyone had those seats that were blocked by the piano, please, in the comments below, tell us where those were so that people will know to avoid them. So where can you get your tickets? Telecharge has a $49 lottery. The link ticks for $40 tickets, they're sold out, but maybe if the show extends, they'll release more of those, so keep an eye out for that. And last I checked on Today Ticks, the tickets were around $100 to $110, which for a show of this magnitude, 3 hours, divide that, the cost per minute is pretty good for this show. So go check out Ragtime at Lincoln Center Theater. Please comment below. Let me know if you enjoyed this off-the-cuff video of me just rambling, or if you want me to go back to a more scripted format. I will listen to these suggestions. Let me know whose names I pronounced wrong and what facts I got wrong. I really appreciate you not only letting me know, but letting everyone else know that I am imperfect, but also keeping everyone so that everything's accurate. I appreciate that a lot. All right, see you at the next one.